Was it Lorraine Newman that said that's terrific, Bass?
Yes, Lorraine Newman.
We have not done an interview in 20 years with former Representative Karen Bass without saying that.
That's right.
But now she's the LA mayor, and it's
Yes.
also terrific, Bass.
That's right.
Good morning, Madam Mayor.
Good morning. Good morning. How are you?
You never get sick of that joke, do you?
No.
So, Madam Mayor, first of all, I have to say, you are doing a terrific job on so many fronts. And I just, this whole DEI battle, because if you watched Fox News, apparently you were entirely to blame for the LA fires. We had to hear one lie after another. And those of us that live here know they were lies about this entire thing. But just talk to us about the attacks, about how the recovery's going, etc.
Well, let me just say, first of all, that we know that this was the worst natural disaster in Los Angeles in recent history. And considering that and the devastation and the loss of life, the loss of homes, the loss of memories, the loss of relationships has just been overwhelming. But having said that, the recovery has been the fastest in history. The phases of getting rid of the toxic waste and then getting rid of the debris have been going at lightning speed. What should have taken a year to 18 months is well underway. As a matter of fact, tomorrow we're going to announce that close to 1,000 properties have been cleared in the Palisades. And that means that those 1,000 families can start rebuilding immediately. Yeah. And usually it takes a year to a year and a half.
Well, Madam Mayor, this is why I have to ask you, because obviously the big story is these tariffs that just went into effect. I know my friends in the building industry here are already talking about the cost of building materials. I know you've worked to cut red tape so people can rebuild fast, but these tariffs are going to hit everything, aren't they?
You are absolutely correct. The cost of rebuilding is going to really go up. But one thing about him is that one day he issues tariffs, the next day he takes them back. So the other thing that I think is going to keep costs high is just the instability, not knowing whether this is going to be the tariffs that stick, and I certainly hope they're not, or if it's going to change from day to day.
Yeah. Well, and also the fact that they're apparently getting rid of FEMA. I know that you are providing no-cost government debris removal from FEMA. How is what's happening at FEMA going to affect our recovery?
Well, that's actually the same type of example, because we heard in the beginning that he was getting rid of FEMA, but we have no indication of that at all. And as a matter of fact, President Biden said that we could reimburse up to 100%. That's something that never happens. Usually FEMA will reimburse 70% of your costs. Trump has carried that on. And so the commitment to reimburse at 100% is still there. But again, it's the instability of 1 minute FEMA is there and the next minute, well, maybe it's going to get the wrath of Elon Musk.
Well, and speaking of DOGE, Madam Mayor, this is you said yesterday, I think one impact of DOGE that people don't seem to be clued in on right now is the effect of massive layoffs in federal agency. Those federal workers don't all work in Washington, D.C. They work in Los Angeles, too. We have over 50,000 federal workers here. You said one thing happening with these layoffs is the instability. To your point about the other, tariffs as well, you said one day you're laid off. 2 days later, the court says you're not. It's been back and forth, creating a sense of uncertainty. Do I have a job? Does my agency even exist? These layoffs will absolutely hit our local economy right here. That is such a great point, is that I don't know why they've cast it as, lazy people that, sit around in D.C. or something, right?
Exactly. And I think that people are not thinking about the toll that it takes here. But can you imagine the emotional toll that takes on folks? One day I'm working, the next day I'm not. Do we depend on the court? And by the way, when one court makes a decision, what about the appeals? What happens in the meantime? Will I get a paycheck? Right. What happens to my pension? And so I would say that just the havoc that Musk in particular has created, and then he's not even an elected official. What role does he have? We've never seen anything like this before.
Yeah. Did you hear Madam Mayor said,
I love LA.
We love it. love it. We love it. We love our
That's
mayor.
right.
So, yeah, I was going to say I'm in a bike club, the Major Taylor Bike Club, and we just did a benefit for some of our members that lost their homes in the LA fires and got a great response. And our listeners chipped in. I know you tweeted about, you said over the past few months, Angelinos all over the city have stood up to help those impacted by the wildfires. Today, the Lakers hosted a mini camp for kids from the Palisades in Altadena, continuing that spirit of LA coming together and standing strong. Yeah, I said we play a song called "L.A. Strong" on the show as well, and it really is true, isn't it? That we've
yes, and I think people don't often think of the children. I had a meeting a little while ago with high school students from Palisades and Altadena, and it just struck me that those same students also went through COVID when they were in middle school, and they were out of school. They had difficulty, with maintaining their relationships. And once again, out of school, missing their friends. And I think that the impact on children really has not been talked about or elevated.
Yeah. Well, and the other, thing you've been talking about, which I think is a huge problem, is you said thousands of Palisades residents finding insurance companies are dropping them before the Palisades fire. Insurance companies can be so just infuriating. And I have to ask, how is that legal, first of all?
Well, and that is such a challenge because people would like for elected officials to rein in the insurance companies. And boy, do I wish we could. We have a state insurance commissioner. He can weigh in to a certain extent. The state legislature can. But this is a national problem where insurance companies will essentially take your money for decades. And then right when you need them, you know what? We're going to cancel your policies. And that happened to too many people in the Palisades where before the fires, they were canceled. And so you have a tremendous number of people who rely on the state insurance policy, the last, safety net, which does not have enough money in it, especially in a neighborhood like Palisades where the homes were valued very high.
Yeah, no, exactly. And that's what I was saying is these tariffs are only going to make building costs even worse. It's really, so I have to ask you about sort of the larger debate. Like we're looking about, signal gate and just this incompetence that we see in almost every story. And yet this big thing is DEI. And you are, as obviously a black woman mayor, you were one of the targets of this during the LA fires. And I hate to say it, but we're seeing massive incompetence by straight white men. Trump administration.
And it's also, you can imagine discouraging to hear that basically now any person of color in a leadership position is suspect. Are you really supposed to be there, or are you there just because you are a minority? So it is discouraging. But, I do have to say that historically, every 10 years or so, we go through this. The latest version of it is DEI.
Yeah. Well, and also, can I just say, I don't know if this is LA Times, but they've released messages from the mayor's office in response to a public records request, helping to illustrate that you managed the city's fire response remotely while you were on board several flights attending the inauguration of Ghana's new president as part of a U.S. delegation. I keep telling, people when you hear these right-wing lies about the LA fires, Madam Mayor, this was a fire tornado. We were in the middle of a fire tornado that I mean, the fact that they blamed you, Gavin Newsom, whoever, must have just been endlessly frustrating for you in the middle of a disaster.
Well, I think it's a perfect way to pivot away from the real issue here. Climate change is having devastating effects in this country. And cities like Los Angeles and states like California, we're experiencing weather events that we have no history of.
Yeah.
When do you have a hurricane in Los Angeles? But that was essentially a hurricane without the water. We have no experience with weather events like that. Right. We used to have fire season. That was from August to about October. This was January.
Yeah. Well, that's what I mean. It was just a solid wall of lies on Fox News about, and hydrants were not empty. The planes couldn't fly in 100-mile-an-hour winds. I mean, and our firefighters did, I thought, an amazing job under unbearable circumstances, didn't they?
Well, and to add to that, I think you had the opportunism from a number of individuals for political reasons who jumped up and wanted to create a narrative. And that becomes a very discouraging thing, because this is a time when Angelenos need to band together. And we really need to push back against any force that's going to try to divide us. And unfortunately, we have a network that spends 24 hours a day doing that.
Well, and things like Trump saying he turned on the giant faucet.
Right.
But the other thing, him opening the whatever he did that sent after our fires were already out, that sent water that he basically stole from the farm workers that are going to need that in the summer. Like, that was just a political stunt, wasn't it? He's like, "Oh, I opened the faucet. You're welcome, Los Angeles." First of all, that water doesn't even go to L.A., does it?
Exactly, 100%. And I think that maybe looking at a map and seeing that Central California is actually quite far from Los Angeles might have helped.
Right.
Yeah. I'm gonna go on to the giant faucet on my next vacation. I had no idea. It was so. Let's talk real quick to one of your victories: violent crimes down across the city, including homicides, aggravated assaults, and robberies. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, that is correct. I've always believed in a comprehensive approach to crime. Number one, try to prevent crime from happening in the first place. And two, when it does happen, get on it very aggressively. So we certainly have done that. I opened up an office of community safety. So we have focused a lot on gang prevention programs, tried and tested and researched strategies to prevent violence, and then working with the police department so that when there is a problem, they get on it aggressively.
Right. What? Because by the way, you mentioned the Olympics, which is exciting, but again, boy, it seems like everything is affected. There's travel advisories from several countries to the United States now.
That's right.
For any number of reasons, right?
Yeah, well, that's right. And those started a few years ago with mass shootings because they said, be careful when you come to the United States. How sad is that?
Yeah, and one last, I got to ask you, because the effect of tariffs are going to have on all of us, including the city of LA, building costs, all that. Dan tweeted, Republicans in Congress could take their power back. Obviously, you were in Congress. They could take their power back, join with Democrats to override and stop this giant tariff tax increase by Trump, but they won't. Blame congressional Republicans as much as you blame Trump and punish them at the polls accordingly. Well, it seems like that's already happening in Wisconsin and also Florida. That is these are districts that Trump won by 30, 40 points only, right? A few months ago that Democrats only lost by 15 points or something, right?
Exactly. And if you recall the first Trump administration, people were so upset in my congressional district at the time. And we started an effort called Sea Change. And we channeled all of that grief and anger into winning the 2 seats. We won the 2 Katies, Katie Hill and Katie Porter. That year, and I think you're going to see the same type of energy next
year. Yeah. I mentioned the farmers and how obviously him taking all the water and that's going to affect crops. And think of how much fruit, vegetables, all that stuff the rest of the country gets from California, right?
That's right.
And Trump will blame, I'm sure, Newsom, somebody for that. But I thought this was interesting because David Frum, who is a Republican, said farm incomes will drop under Trump's tariffs. Farmers will pay more for fertilizer, farm equipment, fuel to ship their products to market. American farmers will lose export markets. Their domestic sales will come under pressure too because these tariffs will shrink Americans' disposable incomes. Consumers will have to cut back everywhere, including at the grocery store. I mean, this is, Republicans, people on, at the Wall Street Journal saying all this stuff now, right?
Absolutely. I think a lot Americans also don't realize how much of their food comes from overseas. So when we put tariffs on Mexico and Canada, the cost of food is going to go up. We're already dealing with that. Before he even came to office, we were dealing with that. And so people should expect that to get worse.
Yep. One last, just maybe advice for your former colleagues in Congress. P.S. Tomlinson said, reminder, the president has no inherent constitutional power to declare tariffs. That power resides with Congress. Trump only has this power now because the GOP Congress handed it to him in a quote unquote emergency. There is no emergency. Republicans are entirely to blame for this.
Well, one of the things that we have to come to grips with is that the government is being run by one branch, and that is the executive, the administration. Congress, the Senate, and the House have been disempowered because the Republicans have decided to give all of their power to Trump.
Yeah.
So it's coming out of the administration, and the administration is pretty much, decided they're going to do what they want to do, regardless of what the courts say and regardless of what Congress says.
Yep. Well, one thing I know, you were a terrific congresswoman and you're a terrific mayor.
Yes,
that is
indeed.
terrific, Bass.
Yes.
I did it again. Madam Mayor, thanks so much. Come back anytime.
All right. Appreciate you.
All right. Appreciate
Thank
you
you.
too. There she goes. Well, did you know that scammers can literally steal your home right out from under you? Not like a cartoon. The FBI calls it house stealing. It is a growing real estate scam targeting American homeowners. Here's how it works. Criminals forge your signature on one document, use a fake notary stamp with your local recorder's office, and just like that, your home title has been transferred out of your name. Then they can take out loans using your equity as collateral, or even sell the property behind your back. You won't even know it's happening until you start getting collection or foreclosure notices. So let me ask you, when was the last time you checked your home title? If you're like me, the answer is never. And that's exactly what scammers are counting on. That's why I trust Home Title Lock. Their $1 million triple lock protection helps keep your home and equity safe. Here's what you get: immediate 24/7 monitoring of your property, urgent alert if there's any changes, and if fraud should happen, their U.S.-based restoration team will spend up to $1 million to fix the fraud and restore your title at no additional cost. Here's the best part: I have teamed up with Home Title Lock to give you a free title history report so you can find out if you are already a victim and access your personal title expert. That is a $250 value just for signing up. Go to HometitleLock.com, use my promo code Stephanie250, or click on the link in the description. That's HometitleLock.com. Promo code is Stephanie250 to get the protection and peace of mind you deserve.